You bury your phone in a drawer when it dies. You don't bury it with its charger or its favorite app or a small offering for the journey ahead. But 50,000 years ago, someone did exactly that for a person they loved. They placed flowers in a grave. They placed tools beside a body that would never use them again. Why would you do that for someone who is gone? The real answer is far stranger than grief. It's a window into how your brain still handles the one thing it was never built to understand. Death is strange to you, not because you don't see it. You see it constantly, in movies, in news, in the loss of people you love. It's strange because your brain cannot actually picture its own end. Try it right now. Try to imagine not existing. You can't. You just imagine watching yourself not exist, which means you're still there, watching. Your mind keeps sneaking itself back into the picture. This isn't a flaw, it's a feature. And your ancestors built entire worlds around it. Around 60,000 years ago, in a cave in what is now northern Iraq, a group of Neanderthals buried one of their own. The site is called Shanidar Cave. Archaeologist Ralph Solecki excavated it in the 1950s and 60s and found something that stunned him. Clusters of flower pollen in the soil around one skeleton, arranged in a pattern that suggested the body had been laid to rest with blooms placed deliberately around it. Some researchers have since debated whether the pollen came from burrowing animals rather than human hands. But the debate itself proves the point. Even scientists want to believe this was intentional. Even scientists want the dead to have mattered. That want is older than language. It's older than agriculture. It might be older than your species itself. Here's the part that should unsettle you a little. Believing the dead still matter requires believing something continues after death. A body doesn't need flowers. A body doesn't need a favorite spear buried beside it. Only a person who is still in some sense present needs those things. So when early humans buried tools, jewelry, and food alongside their dead, they weren't just performing a ritual. They were making a bet. A bet that consciousness doesn't simply switch off like a torch running out of fuel. You are the descendant of that bet, and you have inherited its machinery. In the 1970s, a cultural anthropologist named Ernest Becker published a book called The Denial of Death. His argument was blunt. Human civilization itself, its religions, its art, its nations, its money, its monuments, exists largely as an elaborate defense system against the terror of knowing you will die. Becker didn't live to see his idea tested. He died of cancer the year before his book won the Pulitzer Prize. But 3 psychologists picked up where he left off. Sheldon Solomon, Jeff Greenberg, and Tom Pischinsky built an entire framework called terror management theory, based directly on Becker's ideas. Their experiments are almost eerie in their simplicity. They'd ask one group of people to think in detail about their own death. Then they'd ask a second group to think about something neutral, like watching television. Afterward, both groups answered unrelated questions about their beliefs, their morals, their loyalty to their own culture. The results were consistent, over and over, across decades of replication. People who had just thought about dying became noticeably more defensive of their own worldview. They judged outsiders more harshly. They clung more tightly to their nation, their religion, their group identity. Death, or even the thought of it, made people reach for something bigger than themselves, something that would outlast them. That's not a coincidence. That's the same instinct that placed flowers in a Neanderthal grave. Think about what a belief in an afterlife actually does for a mind that can't picture its own ending. It doesn't erase the fear. It reroutes it. If part of you continues somewhere, then death is not really an ending. It's a doorway. And your brain, unable to imagine true non-existence anyway, slots comfortably into that story. Ancient Egyptians didn't invent the afterlife because they were naive. They invented it because it matched something the human mind was already straining to believe. Different ancient cultures reached wildly different conclusions about what waited on the other side of that doorway. The ancient Egyptians believed your heart would be weighed against a feather by the god Osiris, and if it was lighter than the feather, you'd pass into a paradise called the Field of Reeds. If it wasn't, a creature called Amit would devour you completely. The Norse believed warriors who died bravely in battle were chosen by Valkyries and carried to Valhalla, a hall where they'd feast and fight until the final battle of the gods. Ancient Mesopotamians believed almost everyone, regardless of how they lived, descended into a shadowy underworld called Ku, a gray and joyless place where the dead ate dust. Notice something about these stories. They're not really about death. They're about justice, meaning, and continuation. The Egyptians wanted moral accountability. The Norse wanted glory to be permanent. Even the grim Mesopotamian underworld gave people something, an explanation instead of a blank void. A story, no matter how strange, was easier to carry than nothing at all. You still do this. You just don't call it mythology anymore. When someone dies today, you might say they're in a better place. You might say they're watching over you. You might say they live on in their children, or their music, or the way they made people feel. None of these phrases are neutral facts. They're modern folklore, built from the exact same psychological material as flower burials and feather-weighing gods. Psychologist Paul Rosen, known for his research on disgust and moral psychology, has pointed out that humans have a deep resistance to viewing death as pure biological termination. We instinctively treat the dead as if some essence of them persists, even people who don't hold any formal religious belief. Here's the twist, though. This isn't just superstition getting in the way of cold, hard truth. In many of the terror management studies, people who held strong beliefs in an afterlife, of almost any kind, showed lower anxiety when confronted with reminders of death. The belief wasn't a lie your brain tells you to feel better. It functioned. It worked. It let people move through life without freezing every time they remembered the clock was running. That's the same reason ancient humans painted animals deep inside caves where no one but the dead could see them, in places like Lascaux and Chauvet in France. That's the same reason they carved small human figures believed to represent ancestors watching over the living. They weren't decorating. They were negotiating with something no one could fully explain. So what does this mean for you, scrolling through your day, half aware of your own mortality, mostly avoiding it entirely? It means the part of you that can't quite believe you'll stop existing isn't a bug in your programming. It's a feature inherited from every human who ever lived before you, stretching back to a cave floor scattered with pollen. It means the stories you tell yourself about legacy, about being remembered, about loved ones still with you, aren't naive comforts layered on top of a harsher truth underneath. They might be the oldest, most functional part of being human at all. Ancient humans didn't bury flowers because they misunderstood death. They buried flowers because some part of the human mind has never fully accepted it, and maybe never will. That refusal built religions. It built art. It built civilizations. It's still building the small, quiet stories you tell yourself when someone you love is gone. You bury your phone in a drawer when it dies. But when a person dies, you still, somewhere underneath everything modern and rational about you, reach for a flower.